one time try, you're dead. Matt in particular, I point out because he lost both of his college-aged sons, and what they were going to get high. And Matt would be the first to tell you, if it can happen to his family, it can happen to yours. The best advice I can give anyone watching is, unless a pill is coming from your doctor or your pharmacist, I'm talking, we live in a society now. If you offered me a Tylenol for a headache, I love you and I've known you for 30 years, but I would say, I'm good, because you just never know.
Fentanyl is killing Colorado. But first, subscribe and like our channel. Click on that little bell icon for notifications and find Devil's Advocate podcast on your favorite platform. Steffan Tubbs, filmmaker, did this incredible thing called Devastated. Let's take a quick peek at that right now.
Sunday, February 20, 2022.
Address the location of your emergency, please.
There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Hey, officers, up here! All of them!
Ma'am?
Down!
There's no blood, there's no guns, there's no brain matter, there's none of that. The positions of the deceased, they died where they stood and fell to the ground exactly where they stood.
She was lying face down on her bed. I turned over and I started to see purple.
So here in Denver, we do about 1,000 autopsies a year. 2/3 at least involve fentanyl, plus or minus other drugs.
It's one try and die, one pill and die, one line and die. It's Russian roulette with 6 bullets in the chamber.
It's not a red or a blue issue, it's a red, white, and blue issue. All Americans are being impacted.
I lost my 14-year-old son, Alexander, to fentanyl poisoning.
My daughter, Allie, she was always looking for the next thing she could conquer.
She will forever be missed. She's with us, she's everywhere, and she'll never leave here, so.
They found them lying side by side in their bed. My one son had his arm under his head, just like it was when I'd go in and kiss him goodnight and whisper, I love you in his ear. That's how they said they found him.
So DEA is laser focused on the 2 most powerful cartels in Mexico who are responsible for putting fentanyl on the streets of our country.
But this is just business to them. They're making billions of dollars. They don't care about a death.
My son, Devin, was murdered by fentanyl.
My daughter was murdered.
Jaden was absolutely murdered.
The status of the case is closed.
The Colorado laws on all of this is pure crap.
I really view the governor's efforts on fentanyl to be half-hearted at best.
I'm a very data-driven guy. If there was a state to figure this out, I'd be like, let's do that.
It needs to be fixed. It's just getting worse and worse.
The state legislature just has no interest in doing that.
It pisses me off. I've never encountered something in my law enforcement career where I felt like I was so overwhelmed.
The United States government is using every tool at its disposal to combat the fentanyl epidemic.
If I was someone looking for fentanyl, you could easily find it.
Instagram, Craigslist.
Any school around here.
The whole time I was selling M30s, I did have someone I was going through that had pure fentanyl powder.
I'm already up to here with it. I'm done.
It wasn't even the full pill. It was half of one. That little amount she didn't wake up from.
There'll be nobody that's untouched by this.
These things will affect somebody you know, no matter where, no matter who. And it will be everybody's problem unless we start facing it head on.
So there it is. Is the other 3 hours of this as good as the 2 minutes?
It's only 90 minutes. And I think it's the most important 90 minutes that people in Colorado, John, can spend. This fentanyl crisis is at levels that that these folks have not ever seen. And as the DEA, as the feds will tell you, this is the worst drug crisis the country has ever faced.
Let's step back a little bit. Great to see you making this film. I love when you make a film. Devastated, I've seen it. It doesn't seem like 5 hours. It seems like 5 minutes. It is a captivating movie.
It's not 5 hours. We're gonna tune everybody off.
It's 90 minutes. I said it seems like 5 minutes. Yeah. It's really good.
You know, and that's the biggest compliment, seriously, that a filmmaker, I think, can get is, you know, you look at the total runtime, and I know for some people in this, you know, really quick society we live in, 90 minutes, how can I make, and the biggest compliment that I've received is that seemed like it was half the length because the stories are so compelling.
What's difficult about this issue is if it's not touching your life, you really don't get how devastating it is. If there's not somebody in your immediate family or close friend who's had a problem with fentanyl or accidentally OD'd on fentanyl, you don't get it because it's not like somebody's got a drinking problem. We all know people with drinking problems. This guy smokes too much dope. We all know that guy. This, it's different. What this film brought home for me was, no, it's not over there.
Right.
It's right next door.
I couldn't have said it better myself. And, you know, in this film, Devastated, what we decided to do was try to tackle this fentanyl crisis, but on a Colorado level. And, you know, we just scratched the surface. But, John, the most important takeaway is what you just said. This is happening not in the bad part of town. You don't need to go get, you know, if you're addicted and you need another 30 counterfeit M30s. You don't need to go to that seedy part of town on a Sunday morning at 2 a.m. Kids are using, and everyone, they're using social media apps. They're using the financial apps that we all have on our cell phones to pay for it. In some cases, these victims are not even leaving their home. I can't tell you how many Colorado families that not only in this film, but that we talked to in preparation, where they hadn't heard from their son or daughter. It's 5 hours after they're normally up and they go into their room. They never left their room. They died right there in their beds. And it's, to me, as a filmmaker and somebody that cares about Colorado, this film had to be made.
Let's start off real small. Fentanyl. People are in the hospital. They're often on fentanyl. It's
a miracle drug.
Yeah, it's a miracle drug. It's an antiseptic, not an antiseptic, but it helps put you under. It saves people's lives.
Yeah.
That ain't what we're talking about. What exactly is fentanyl?
Fentanyl has been around since, I think, the late 50s. And in a hospital setting, there's a reason why they ask for your height and weight. There's a reason why the anesthesiologist, they take your life into their hands, and I know you know this firsthand. But fentanyl in a hospital or medical setting, John, it's delivered in the nanogram level. But the most important thing to note is it's a synthetic, okay? And we can get into that a little bit later as to how...
This is not pot, this is not mushrooms, this is not booze.
It's not derived from the coca leaf.
Right, it's not. This is a highly processed...
Correct, and it's completely chemical in nature. So we're talking in a hospital setting, nanograms. We're talking a potential fatal dose to someone like you and me who we're non-users, 2 milligrams. And, for comparison, 1 gram is a sugar packet. That's 1 gram. We're talking 2 milligrams. It's small enough to fit on the tip of a pencil, a couple granules of salt or sugar. That is a fatal dose to a first-time user.
Where does it come from?
We gonna take the gloves off here and
take the gloves off.
And let's just be flat out honest. The precursor chemicals for fentanyl, primarily 98, 99% come from China, period. China to Mexico, the only reason I say 98, 99% is some of it is coming in from India, some of it. But in simple terms...
What is the raw drug? What is the precursor?
That's beyond my pay grade.
Okay.
Yeah, these are just chemicals that are made in China. These are shipped mostly literally ship to ports in Mexico. These precursor chemicals are then mixed in not a Merck lab.
We're not calling Lilly Pharmaceutical kind of places.
Correct.
Here.
Not Johnson & Johnson. No, we're talking about, I've seen pictures that these fentanyl labs, they're in, you see the toilet there. I've seen it mixed in 55-gallon drums in a cow pasture. There was a story going around that once this stuff is made, if the people making this deadly poison, if they drank a certain beer as they were drinking it, it would be an antidote to fentanyl. I mean, which is lunacy. But it's then pill pressed into, mostly counterfeit M30s or the OxyContins. And
M30s are what?
M30s are, so take, for example, what you'd get an OxyContin tablet. They're called blues on the streets. But
and the stamp on it is
an M on one side for Merck 30. And a 30 for the 30 milligrams. And that is primarily throughout the country, definitely here in Colorado. That's what we're seeing.
If fentanyl was to do what it advertises, would it be like a Percocet? Would it be an OxyContin?
In a nanogram setting, perhaps.
Right.
But I mean, the simple way to look at it too, again, so we've identified precursors from China, made in Mexico, bad, horrible conditions, the potential lethality of it all. And then they mix it up, and then they're putting the powder into pill presses, and they can churn out 30,000 a day of these little pills.
And anyone who knows anything about smuggling, the moonshiners, we're running moonshine. You had to run big things of booze. And then it's like, no, we need something that's smaller and easier to get. Weed is easier. Wait, no, cocaine is even smaller still. Fentanyl is this.
Oh, the pills, John?
This. And so the ability to get it across the border, it's not like you need a Coors semi-truck to get it across.
You can smuggle it. We've seen, not to get too gross, but I mean, Border Patrol will tell you, there's inserted in humans. That right. I mean, from that to putting it in frozen fish to simply putting it in boxes and putting it in somebody's trunk. I mean, Customs and Border Patrol, they're overwhelmed. That's not why we're here to talk about border issues, but it's a part of this horrible equation. But overall, there's a couple of things I think that are important, and I hope that your audience watches this documentary film absolutely for free on YouTube. The pills themselves, once they get the powder, relatively speaking, cost about 2 to 4 cents to make. Okay. Here on the streets of Denver, I think the last total that I heard was a little bit under $1 a pill. Now, if you go in the Rocky Mountain region, you can still go to an Indian reservation in northern Montana. Those pills, again, that cost 2 to 4 cents to make, are selling for upwards of $60 a pill. Now, taking nefarious activity and illegal activity out of this, if you and I came up with a business plan, John, we can make this widget for 2 cents each, and we can sell that to some sucker for $60. We'd be in that business. You'd leave all of this behind, right?
There's no question why it's getting smuggled. There's no question about the money being made. The question I have, and it goes beyond Colorado, why is China doing this? And they know this is an operation. This is a way to weaken America. That's my sense. They're not sending this because we're great guys and well, they're not. Mexico needs it for fertilizer.
They're not just assisting the Mexican economy, although some would say they are. That is above where we go in the film Devastated, but we do touch on why Colorado, how easy it is with the I-25 and I-70 corridors.
The same reason that Denver is flooded with migrants is the same reason it's flooded
central location
with fentanyl. You just go up I-25. It's the biggest city. It's a perfect hub to go out to the Rocky Mountain West.
Even back east.
Yeah. What I loved about Devastated was it's Colorado-centric. There's a lot of stuff on the drug war, and here's what's bad, and here's this. No, you brought it home to us. Tell us a couple of the stories that moved you the most.
Well, I appreciate that. And, that's what I think my team, what we were most cognizant of is that this film does not happen unless we hear from those impacted directly. And I will forever, the rest of my days, will be beyond grateful and thankful that these families took the most devastating portion of their lives. And they sat down with a guy with a lot of questions, me, my camera crew, the lights. In many cases, we rearranged their living rooms. But they did it to a person. And throughout the regions of, north, south, east, west of Colorado, these individuals, John, told me the same thing as to, here's why I'm doing this. And they said, because I want our family's tragedy to hopefully prevent another Colorado family from going through the devastation that we did. And I don't know if there's anything more commendable than that. And these stories, as you know, are heartbreaking.
They're reliving horror. And what got me was the immediacy. That you think your kid's doing okay, you think he's doing fine, and then he's dead. Like that. It's not like you had telltale signs. It's not like, there's a big change in behavior. It's that the first time it can kill you. One
pill can kill is I know the Drug Enforcement Administration's national campaign, I owe so many people thanks. I mean, I owe you thanks for the time to promote this film. I owe everyone that took part in it. There's a big political kind of chunk of the film, and a lot of the Democrats in this state, they don't like me anyway after Denver and Decay several years ago, and we talked about that on the program. But, we try to go through, how we got here.
On the thanking folks, let me just make a quick little detour.
Yeah.
We have a mutual friend and a guy named Steve Wells, who is Colorado spirit to me. This is a guy who's a rancher, he's involved in oil and gas, and
a big heart.
A big heart, and he does things differently. I mean, there's a lot of people throw money at things. This guy does it differently. He was a major backer in this.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up, I still sometimes go to Mr. Wells, but Steve Wells has become a friend, and without Steve Wells, this project does not happen. Back when I was a decade plus ago doing, smaller films, and I wanted this one to be our best so far, and I think we've succeeded. But, gone are the days of calling up your buddy that you used to work with in New York and saying, hey, for room and board, come out and spend 2 weeks with me. We needed to pay our crew members and just the cost of production. It is not cheap. And I think we got a bargain. But without Steve Wells and his heart, Devastated is...
What do you think motivated him? Again, Devastated is about Colorado.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you exactly why. And I think, Mr. Wells, if you're watching, don't be upset. I think this is pretty much out in public now. But long story short, when I had my radio show, Steve Wells we had just come back, like within 60 days, we'd come back from the border, and we did our program. My talk show was down there for a week, and our others at KNUS at the time. So Steve Wells came, and he had funded that particular trip. He comes back in, 2 months later to kind of recap. And at the end of it, I just kept thinking, this is your chance. You want to ask him about this fentanyl film. He's the one guy with the most money You're either going to ask him or you're not. And so as I'm in my 5-minute window before the next hour begins, I said, would you be interested at all in getting, could I put you a presentation together to fund a film about fentanyl? And he's like, well, let's listen. I say this because I'm still amazed. With really nothing on paper, no contract, just a verbal and an agreement and a handshake, 18 hours and 3 minutes later, no joke, 18 hours, 3 minutes later, he agreed to fully fund Devastated. And this was now a little bit, almost approaching 2 years ago.
Since then, the numbers for what he invested, how many eyeballs so far?
As we sit here, we're coming up on 600,000 views from people from around the world.
600,000. And again, Go to YouTube. It's worth it. It's 90 minutes worth it.
Devastated Colorado's fentanyl disaster. But just back on why Steve, why? Why a guy from northeastern Colorado, sure, with funds, but he's pulled in a billion different directions. I think it's been put out there. Steve would later tell me, and this was honestly, John, this was months later. And I'm like, yes, thank you for believing in me and Mountain Time Media, my production company, for the team. But he said, I didn't tell you something. And one of the reasons why I instantly jumped at this chance to do a documentary on fentanyl is one of his very good friends lost a child to fentanyl poisoning. And, this goes back to what you said several minutes ago about, I'll counter you in that more than 105,000 Americans in 2023 died of a drug overdose, and 70+% of those cases were fentanyl related. John, there's no signs of this slowing down. The supply it's mind blowing to what I know with what I do now for my job, but also you just need to pay attention to the news to see what a problem it is. So my question, and where I would counter you in that, people don't care about this until it happens to them, right? Or their family. But we are getting to a point, John, that this is now, we're going into like 6 or 7 years of this crisis in America. Another 3 years, if not right now, that people know of something in their family or know a neighbor or a friend or a college roommate that it's touched them. It's getting smaller.
So, about my son who has Down syndrome. He is remarkably vulnerable. And I could see him and people like him accidentally getting into fentanyl because it's mixed into so many things.
And so addictive.
With so many needles lying around in public parks, with so much trash around, with so many stupid people going, oh, here, just, go ahead. It really worries me about that. I know people in college, friends of friends of friends of kids who have college, they have fentanyl testing strips.
Don't buy it, by the way.
They
don't work. They're not foolproof. They're not. Here, let's test this.
Let's test this cocaine to see if it's got it.
Right. Well, guess what? You test this portion of the cocaine, and that portion has the fatal fentanyl in it. It's the chocolate chip cookie analogy that's used. Yeah. But again, back to those Mexico labs. You're making a pill. So John and we share a chocolate chip cookie as an analogy. Well, I break it in half. Well, you may have 12 chips. I may have 5, 6. You're dead. That's about as simple as I can make it.
Give me a story from Devastated. You highlight several. Which one impacted you?
Oh, good God.
They all did.
Every single one of them. I've got to say,
Bring it home for us. Make it real.
I feel like I'm putting to the side the others, but I will tell you the one. They all have made an impact, and they will when you watch the film. But I'll point out Matt Riviere, a Monument resident who lost both of his sons in one night, one bad batch. They thought they were getting a drug, they were gonna party, and they both died together. And I bring Matt's story up because they're all horrific, and Mickey Sadivi and Andrea Thomas and so many of the families in Devastated, I owe them so much, never to be repaid. But Matt in particular, I point out because he lost both of his college-aged sons, and what they were going to get high. And Matt would be the first to tell you, if it can happen to his family, it can happen to yours. In Colorado.
These are not families that are living out on the streets of Denver. These are not people living under bridges. These are middle-class Colorado families.
Black, white, Hispanic, no socioeconomic barrier. The best advice I can give anyone watching is, unless a pill is coming from your doctor or your pharmacist, we live in a society now. If you offered me a Tylenol for a headache, I love you and I've known you for 30 years, but I would say, I'm good, because you just never know. And the other whole flip side of this fentanyl crisis, John, is, and the Denver Medical Examiner, Jim Caruso, is phenomenal in Devastated. And he points out what I call the other side of the coin. We've talked about the college kid that just wants to get high, or here, try this, it'll be great. One time try, you're dead. We in Colorado, especially in downtown Denver, we are looking at a portion of society that can build up the tolerance. They may be taking, or when I say take, they actually smoke it. You're not just taking these pills with a glass of water. That's why you see the tinfoil. They'll heat the pills from underneath on tinfoil, and they inhale the fumes because it gets into your system quicker. But if you survive playing Russian roulette, you start to build up a tolerance. That one pill was great and it didn't kill you, but man, it made you feel great. But guess what? 3 weeks later, you're going to maybe need 3 or 4.
The term is chasing the dragon, which is, how do I get that high that I had the first time?
And
get more and more.
And at some point, John, the dragon is not only going to get you, he's going to kill you.
What changed to make it such a flood in Colorado? Is it, and let's talk about Colorado politics specifically. Why is there more of it now than before?
That's not Colorado's problem, actually. Of all the times I've been with you and talked with you about blaming Colorado and blaming this faction or these people, the fact that it's flooding into Colorado is not Colorado's fault. It's this. Every state's a border state. We've got a little bit of an issue as to a porous border, we all know. So
none of the new drug laws that treated criminals a little bit more lightly?
I mean, I guess you could make the argument that if this set of laws on the books is easier, maybe they're going to target Colorado more. I don't know if I necessarily believe that.
Is it just because it is so omnipresent?
It is.
That is everywhere. That every high school, maybe every junior high school, a kid can talk to another kid, and it's there.
Yeah. So that is true. And anybody watching that, I guarantee you there's somebody out there going, there's those two blowhards again. They're trying to tell me a problem that doesn't exist. I'm telling you, it's in every county in Colorado, and it could be in a middle or high school where you are. But real quick, we do get into, say, House Bill 1326, which, there was a time where you could have 4 grams of hard stuff, including fentanyl, and it was a misdemeanor. And, we get into the politics.
Not 4 milligrams.
4 grams. Enough to kill up to 2,500, 3,000 people. That was a misdemeanor in Colorado. The one thing in putting this film together, in putting Devastated together, I was amazed at how many people in this state, primarily of one party, that they almost, John, treated the drug dealers like the victims. It's like, wait a minute. Meet Mickey, meet Andrea, meet Matt, meet Angela, meet these families that are in this film, and you tell me who's the victim.
What do you want to happen? So you watch this movie, and it educates you, gives you an idea that, wait a second, this is not out there. It is right next door. It could be in my kid's bedroom upstairs. It's that easy to get, and it's that easy to hide. So what was your goal with this?
To present in a fairly easy to digest way that whether you like it or not, it's here. It's in Colorado. It has the potential to impact your family. And I know you had our good friend Mike Rosen on not too long ago, and he was the one way back in the day, 30 years ago, telling me, watch out how you say if it just saves a life. But in putting this together, I may never know. My team may never know. Mr. Wells may never know. But I'm pretty confident that there is somebody out there that is going to see devastation. They may be in Australia. We've heard from people in Australia and Germany and France and all over the country. There may be someone out there that we never know, but they see this film. They may agree with 80% of it. There are things you can't dispute, but then they may have that conversation. That would probably be my goal.
Normalizing a conversation is a first step. And like pot is here legally. Fentanyl's here illegally. It ain't stopping.
It's not going away.
It is not going away. So if you're hoping that Uncle Sam is somehow going to close down the border. The product is so cheap. It is so easy to hide. And the way into the country is so porous. It's not going to stop.
It won't stop. If you, quote unquote, shut down the border today, shut it down, fentanyl's still going to be a crisis.
I get frustrated when people don't deal with reality. Now, we all have our blind spots.
Right.
And I think there's this blind spot on this drug war, if these guys will just do their job, my kid will be safe. In other words, if we just shut it down, if the DEA and the FBI and the local cop, if they just did their job and put these guys away, my kid wouldn't die. I don't need to worry about this because I don't need one more thing to worry about.
Yeah.
That's not real. You're not living in reality if you think it's going to get solved on the supply side.
Correct.
It has to be solved on the demand side.
You know, and I think you made me think of something that I think is very important. I've had people say, well, you know, this wouldn't be an issue if America didn't have this insatiable appetite for drugs. And to those people, I say, you are exactly right. But you're not going to, I say all the time, we're not going to arrest our way out of this. We're not going to prosecute our way out of this. We're not going to sentence our way out of this. You're not going to drug counsel your way out of this. It's going to take, and I know it sounds corny, but it's this multi-pronged approach. First, starting with people need to realize how serious and deadly the consequences are. This is a one try and die in many, many cases. And for those that are addicted, maybe they're taking 30 or 40 or using 30 or 40 pills a day. At some point, the dragon's going to kill them. But I say all the time, John, and I so appreciate you as a friend and taking the time to let me talk about this, because I say a lot, look, to parents, you may not have liked that birds and the bees talk with your kids, okay? None of us really did. Maybe that was awkward. This fentanyl discussion, drugs, it may be even a worse, spinning in your mind, how am I gonna do this? I say this all the time. You would rather have that difficult, awkward situation than plan their funeral. And I know too many parents that, even with the talk, they've had to plan their child's funeral.
What makes it a particularly difficult talk is the sex talk. Well, mom and dad did have sex. That's why you're here. And so we actually know something about it. Not as much as you could learn on Pornhub, I'm sure, but we know something about it. But when it comes to drugs, kids don't want to listen because parents don't know anything. Yeah. Parents are the stupidest people in the world.
Yeah.
So it really takes extra effort for parents to get through to their kids.
Yeah, can I give a plug real quick?
Yeah.
The DEA has resources available, and I just want to throw the plug out there because it's very easy. DEA.gov/1pill. DEA.gov/1pill. And it has some resources if you need maybe a little, how do you approach your kids? And I'm not just talking, 7, 8-year-olds. I'm talking, I had the first fentanyl talk with my kids when they were in, the early years of college. And they rolled their eyes, and then, then it all made sense to them. But you also will see if your son or daughter, grandchild, if they've got a laptop, if they've got a cell phone, if they've got a mobile device, if they've got a touchpad, iPad, they are potentially in that area to cast the net. They're using emojis. There's not even any communication, like words. It's emoji means this, and this means that, and this, they'll use numbers for the amount of money.
Send me the Venmo, I'll get you the pill, and that's that.
So DEA.gov/1pill.
You're talking about saving lives. Politics is always downstream of culture. That's why I work on political culture in Colorado. I think that's, if we fix that, good things follow. And people say, no, you can't change culture. You can't do that. A group can't do that. And that's baloney. I look at Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Both you and I are old enough to remember the days when you could go home, drive home drunk, and then laugh about it the next day with your buddies.
Yep.
You could go, hey, and it was a funny thing. If you could go to work and crack a joke, if you cracked that joke today, you
Canceled.
would be shunned.
Canceled.
It'd be, what are you, sick? We have done so much. And yeah, they do terrible policy like hold our highway money hostage for drinking ages. That's not what saves lives. What saves lives is changing the culture that it's okay to go, hey, I'll be the DD today. I'll be the designated driver. Let's go out. Or let's call the Uber. We'll Uber there, and because now we talk about it.
Well, what are we going to get to, John? You know, we have one of we do law enforcement as well in the film, and Arapahoe County Sheriff Tyler Brown tells us, you know, he thought that 100,000 Americans dying a year would be kind of like that shakeup of where now let's get the, like you say, you know, I'll be the designated driver. Where's the public buildup of we've got to be against this? And he tells us in the film, you know, what's it going to be? 500,000 Americans that are poisoned to death every year before someone pays attention. And if you notice on the campaign trail, Republicans and Democrats, I think Republicans talk about it a little more, but no one's talking about it enough.
Vietnam killed about 40,000, 45,000 Americans.
It's about 58,000.
58. Right.
58,000.
58,000 Americans. And what Vietnam has done to the American psyche since then is an atomic bomb. You know, entertainment, Hollywood, everything is a lesson about Vietnam. But that many people are dying a year, not over the course of a decade, a year from fentanyl.
Let me point it to you directly. 58,000 roughly died in the Vietnam War. Americans died. Horrific. Destroyed a generation, and families still to this day feel the impact. Last year only, 70,000 plus died of a fentanyl poisoning just in our country. 15,000 more than died in Vietnam. I'm not trying to liken the two. We're just talking totals. When is that going to be a big deal? And when is it going to be this stigma that is going to be, look, gone are the days of, oh, my cousin, he's addicted, or my wife has a drinking problem. I would hope before we die that we can get that out and the stigma is gone, and everybody who's anybody probably has somebody that's been messed up, has been addicted to something, but we don't have to keep it in the closet anymore. And I don't think we're going to have a choice if we continue seeing 100,000, 110,000, 150,000 Americans dying of drug overdose or poisonings every year.
Let's switch that a little bit. About 35,000, 40,000 Americans a year die on the roads. Road travel gets safer and safer, and that's it. So double that amount die from fentanyl overdoses. Yeah. How many parents have talked to their kids about, no, you need to drive better. No, I'm not letting you drive here. Driving is a big responsibility. Let's see, we'll have the training classes. We'll get you to schools. We're going to drive with you until you learn how to do this. Because parents are scared to death about losing their kid in a traffic accident.
Yeah.
They should be twice as scared about them losing their life to fentanyl. And they should put twice as much effort as car safety.
I couldn't agree with you more. The emphasis, the talk, the discussion, and again, it's the family that says it could never happen to me or it wouldn't ever happen to me. Let's focus on Colorado. Those are the Colorado families that I'm concerned for, because just when you think, look, we start out the film and the trailer with the tragedy in February of 2022 in Commerce City. 5 people from a family, just, they got some Coke and they were gonna, it's 2 a.m. on President's Day weekend, 2 a.m. on a Sunday. They got the holiday Monday. 5 people, the detective sergeant in Commerce City you'll see in the film, they basically died where they stood. 2 hours, 3 days earlier, do you think that family, were they talking about fentanyl, or how about anybody in the general region? Well, now that family is devastated. And that's how the film actually opens and closes.
People need to watch the film. Watch the film. It's a great film. And I know you've done a lot. Denver in Decay was a smash hit. This is better. This one was more powerful, and I'm just grateful you did it.
And a big shout out to my team. We had the best of the best folks do this.
You know, what I really liked was the car chase scene and the lesbian love scene. I thought those were...
You know, I thought we were going to make it an hour without any kind of... We didn't.
No.
Actually, I won a side bet. I knew you'd do something like this. Oh, by the way, congratulations on still being here with us.
Yeah, I survived a heart attack and probably got some fentanyl during the procedure.
Nanogram.
Yeah.
But thank you. It's too important of a topic. I thank you for giving the attention that it deserves.
Switch off just a little bit and go personal. You miss talk radio?
So I've been out of talk radio for about almost a year.
Can't believe it's been that long.
It's crazy, isn't it? I do, but maybe only a handful of times. The one after the first presidential debate with the former presidential candidate, Mr. Biden, and Donald Trump, I missed that.
Get me into the microphone. I need a microphone.
There's been a couple of times, John, where I'm like, I could really do a good show. But I'm really happy with what I'm doing now. I'm sitting here as Joe Civilian, but I now work. Fentanyl led me to my career change and led me to do this, obviously this documentary film, but I work as the public affairs person for the Drug Enforcement Administration now, 4 states, Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and Montana. And
so can you get me into the evidence locker?
No, I cannot. But I will say this, from day one, I've been known to exaggerate on talk radio, but not here. From day one, I've been amazed to see the men and women, what they're trying to do. Look, it is an uphill battle, but they're working hard, and the seizures are amazing.
You also said it's a losing fight, that you have to fight it on the demand side, that we're not stopping it. So there's got to be an incredible frustration with your coworkers who are trying to stop it coming in.
I'm afraid I can't talk about that. I was here as Joe Civilian, but I'm amazed at the work that's being done. Look, it is a tough job. For every one you get, how many do you not get? And I'm telling you right now, without some serious big changes, this is me talking, not representing DEA, but without some serious changes of the flow from China to Mexico production and up, without a change in the appetite of Americans, I don't know how long it's going to take before it gets really better.
Soon we'll be a non-smoking country. There was a time when we were kids, everybody smoked. You watched Andy Griffith, and he's there with a cigarette. I Love Lucy, they're there with a cigarette. It was everyone. It changes. It wasn't because of sin taxes. It was because people got smart. I think the same thing happens here.
I sure hope you're right.
Yeah.
We need to get smarter.
Thanks for doing this. Again, remarkable job.
Thank you, John.
If you enjoyed that conversation, by all means, click one of these other great programs. We have the best conversations with the most fascinating Coloradans. And subscribe to our channel. Just click down below and hit that little bell button too. You don't want to miss a single show.